Ông đi tiêm FA một hôm mà, xong rồi bây giờ về ông thấy mệt.
Tại vì chị bị hành mũi 3 xong rồi, cái qua một tuần sau là chị bị dính luôn đó thầy.
Thế có khi là trong cái giai đoạn đi tiêm sợ nha.
Dạ mà em thấy mọi người chích mũi 3 bị hành dữ lắm đó thầy.
Do vì cái mũi đầu có thể là tiêm cái loại khác á, còn thứ ba tiêm qua Pfizer các kiểu. Việt tiêm vaccine chưa Việt?
Dạ em mới tiêm Pfizer cách đây 2 ngày.
Ok
anh
không?
tiêm mũi 3 luôn đó thầy.
Dạ đúng rồi, em tiêm mũi 3 luôn, em chỉ bị nhức thôi chứ bình thường à.
Em thấy con trai đỡ hành hơn cái này. Em thấy con trai toàn bị nhức tay không à.
Em có tập thể dục thể thao cho nên nó khỏe này.
Đúng rồi, với trẻ nữa.
Em thấy hầu như mà con trai đi chích, đàn ông đi chích đó thầy, gần em kiểu ba nè với lại mấy anh họ không có ai bị gì hết trơn hết trọi, kiểu chỉ bị nhức tay thôi.
Did we mention about the void contract before, everyone?
Oh yes, we stopped at consequence about void contract. We finished about legal consequence.
Okay, legal consequences. So when you sign the contract, you may not want your contract be avoided, but somehow it's because you cannot satisfy the requirement for the validity of the contract. For example, the party don't have the competence to sign the contract, or maybe the content or the purpose of the contract is not in accordance with the law. So in those situations, your contract would be voidable, or we can say invalid. And when that happening, so it means that the party need to return to the starting point. When I'm saying return to the starting point, it means that if you already deliver the good to your partner, so you need to get your good back. And if your partner already made the payment, so you need to return the money back to your customer. Okay, and also if one of the party is in a fault, so you need to be liable for paying the damages to the other. So that's the meaning of the void contract. So today we are moving to the new session. Let me see. The remedies for breach of the contract. Remedies. What are the remedies? So like when you break the contract, okay. When you are in breach, so you may got the punishment, or you may get the sanction. So the punishment or the sanction, in the law, in the contract law, we use the term remedies. Remedy refer to the punishment or the sanction that you may suffer if you are in breach. Okay, so that's the meaning of the term. In this session, we try to examine the two main sessions. The number one is the exemption for the non-performance, and the number two, remedy for breach of the contract. Somehow you cannot perform the contract, but you are free from the liability. So that is the exemption. Okay, exemption is mean that when you break the law, but then you do not have any responsibility. And when that happens, so first of all, it's mentioned under different law. So for the Vietnam's law, it's mentioned under the Article 394 to the 296. For the Civil Code, it also mentioned under the Article 156.1 and the Article 351.2. The CIFG, so you need to refer to the Article 79. Okay. Now let's start with the law on commerce. First, Article 294, everyone. So actually, if you read the Article 294 on the law, or even on the slide here, you can see that they may mention the four circumstances where one party is exempted from non-performance. So I want you to read it and to give me an example for each scenario that I mentioned here. So we got 4 scenarios in total. So you can give me one example for each scenario here. Okay, time to give me some example. Let's pray for the scenario mentioned under the Article 294.
Oh, I cannot like think about an example for scenario 1. So could I give an example for the second scenario?
Okay, sure.
Okay, for the second scenario, this is a force major event, and also I compare to the article 779.1. I think an example for company A shall contract with company B, and B is a cosmetic distribution company in Australia. However, because due to the epidemic situation, B cannot deliver goods on time to A, and although B try hard to delivery on time, however because of the complicated situation of COVID-19, so B can't, and we also prove that the company try to give and try to to avoid and overcome the failure.
Okay. Thank you, Julie. So Julie mentioned a situation where the one party cannot deliver the goods due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So she supposed that the COVID-19 pandemic does see the kind of the force majeure event. And for that reason, if the Australian company that can deliver cosmetic here, so it can be exempted, and they don't have to pay any damages because that's the force majeure event. We may talk about the force majeure event a bit later on. But I think that's a good example about the force majeure event. Going back to the first situation, they may mention that a case of liability exemption agreed upon by the parties. So we may not sure whether the pandemic, the COVID-19, what is happening is going on, whether that's a force majeure event or not. So we may mention in the contract, okay, if the COVID-19 is spreading out again in Vietnam, so when that happens, when this is the case, so one party can be exempted from non-delivery of the goods or the commodity. So it could be agreed in the contract. So when you mention a condition and that condition happening in reality, so it should be exempted. Okay, so that's it, the number one, and that's it, the number two as well. How about the number three? A breach by one party is entirely attributable to the other party's fault. Can you give me an example about in this situation? Okay, I could give you one simple example here, everyone. So let's say you made the late payment to the seller. But the reason why you made the late payment to the seller is that because the seller delivered the good late to you. Because they deliver the good 1 month later than agree in the contract. So that's the main reason you made the late payment to them. So in this situation, the late payment activity would be exempted because that behavior is due to the other party's fault. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes. Could you please explain one more time, please?
Okay, so actually, you and me sign the contract together, and we suppose that okay, you deliver the good and this month to me. But then for some reason you didn't deliver the good to me on time. Actually, you deliver the good 10 days later. So because you deliver the good to me late, so I cannot make the payment to you on time. So I have to delay make a payment to you on the next 10 days as well. So it means that I already breached of the contract because I made the late payment to you, right? But I would be exempted for the late payment because my behavior is based on your fault. Because you deliver late to me, so I have to make the late payment to you.
Yeah, all right. I got it.
Okay. Now, the number four, a breach is committed by one party as a result of the execution of a decision of a competent state management agency, which the party cannot know or at the same time the contract is entered into. This is a bit like it's not very popular, but still happening in reality. Can you give me some example to illustrate this scenario, everyone? You cannot perform the contract due to the action of the state or the state agency.
Can we still talk about COVID-19? So so about that, when I signed a contract with B, party B, this time the COVID-19, the government still they didn't delivery regular of test sun and cách ly. So yes, so that we cannot delivery or doing something.
Yep, that's right, and that's it happening, right? Especially for a couple of months ago, without the vaccination and due to the travel restriction, you are not allowed to move around. You are not allowed to travel from this province to another province, and it may prevent the company from delivering the goods to the customer. And that would be the exemption under the Article 294 here, because totally the breach here is at the result of the decision of the competent agency. or due to the policy of closing the border, so they cannot deliver the good from one country to another. Okay, or in some stage in Vietnam, the Vietnam give a ban on the export of rice, so they are not allowed for the company to export the rice to other country due to the security. So they want to make sure that okay, the rice could be distributed in the territory of Vietnam, and they don't want to export it in other country just for the security reason. So in some cases, like I mentioned, so you are not allowed to perform the contract due to the execution of the decision of a state agency, and that's understandable, and that's exempted under the law. So if we are following those scenarios, clearly we are exempted. It means that even you are in breach, you have break the contract already, but you have no responsibility for this, because this is kind of the beyond one's control. Okay, this is kind of the objective, and you have nothing to do with this situation. Okay, so one of the things I want you to know is about the fourth major event. So we not about it. We talk a lot, and I think that it's not the new thing to you, but I want you to discover it from the legal perspective. So first of all, I want you to have a quick look on the Civil Code of Vietnam, and also based on the CIFG. We got two different laws. And as I mentioned earlier, so please remember, when will we be when the civil code be applicable? So first of all, if it is just a domestic transaction, so clearly the Vietnam's law would be applicable. However, for the CIFG, it will be applicable if we have the foreign element transaction, and then the party also the member of this convention. And many of the Vietnamese partners nowadays, they are ratified the convention already. So the CIG would be more popular as well. So I want you to have a quick look on the two articles on the slide and make a comparison. And did you see any similarity or differences between the two laws governing the same issue, which is the force majeure event? Okay, so that's the definition of under the law. Now I would give you some more minutes to read it, and then tell me the differences or the similarity between the two laws. Okay, now, can someone tell me from your observation, did you see any similarities or differences regarding the Civil Code and the CIFG? Any volunteers, everyone? Cheno, are you there?
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Okay. So I want you to make a comparison between the two laws that I mentioned on the slide. So that is the definition of the force majeure made by the Civil Code 2015 of Vietnam, and the second one is the CIFG. So can you reckon any similarities or any differences between the two laws regarding the force majeure event here?
I noticed one difference. It says in the CISG, party is not liable for failure to perform. And if his obligations, if he proves that the failure was due to impediment beyond his control, meaning like when you set an example with COVID, and here, like, for example, when the time period is like has been limited, the person has the right to initiate legal action for a civil case or make request not able to do so with the period at 156.1 on Civil Code.
Okay, thank you, Gino.
Thank you.
Let me hear from others. So let me call someone randomly to ask for this question. I would like to hear more from Woon Lang. Woon Lang, are you there? Woon Lang not here today. Ngọc Mai. Ngọc Mai absent.
Dạ Ngọc Mai absent thầy ơi.
Okay, thank you. Thái Vy.
Yes, I'm here, but I haven't realized some.
Okay, you didn't spot out any differences or the similarity here. Okay, that's fine. Might be another one then. Tuấn Anh, how about you? Tuấn Anh is absent today either.
Yes, right. No, I'm here. But right, actually, this one I still thinking about the answer, the suitable answer. Could you please come back with me later? I'm sorry about this one.
Okay. Now, let's analyze together about the two main laws here. To consider an event is a force majeure event. Actually, in Vietnam's law, we need to satisfy three main conditions. So what are the three main conditions here? So the first one, the event must happen in an objective manner. Okay? So it may occur beyond one's control. You cannot know about that event. Okay? It's happening due to some other reason, some external factors, not from your internal factor. Okay? So that's in an objective manner. Now, in in the CISG, the wording may be a bit different. They use the term beyond one control. That is the first condition set by the CISG. But even though the wording is a bit different here, but the meaning, the true meaning, it should be the same. So that event, it should be happening in an objective manner, or it's beyond one's control. So it should be the same in the way that, okay, that event happening might be out of your control, and it happening objectively. Okay, it's made due to some external factor. So that is the first criteria, and I think for the first criteria, it should be the same between the CISG and the Vietnamese law. Okay, now looking at the second criteria under the Vietnamese law, that event is not able to be foreseen. It's not able to foreseen. So you cannot be forecasted at the time when you conclude the contract. When you sign the contract, you cannot predict that event will be happening. So let's say when you sign the contract, you may not know that the COVID-19 is happening. So it cannot be forecasted. It cannot be predicted. Or we can say it's unpredictable, or it's unforeseeable. So that is the second condition. Okay, and the time when you cannot predict is at the time before or at the time when you sign the contract. Okay. Now look at the CISG. They said that he could not reasonably be expected to have taken the impediment into account at the time of the conclusion of the contract. Here in the CISG, so they make it more clearer. At the time when you sign the contract, you cannot recognize, or you cannot take the event into account. But even though, as I said before, the wording, it might be a bit different, but the meaning is stay the same. The meaning here is that, okay, whatever that happened, you may not predict, you may not foresee that event when you sign the contract. Okay, if that event may foresee at the contract, that is not the force majeure event. Okay, you get my point, everyone? And the third condition, and I think that's the most important condition. Yes, thank you. So the third condition and the most important condition is that under the civil code, when that event happening, you are not able to deal with the situation. It means that even you try your best, but that you cannot overcome the consequences of that event. When the COVID-19 happening, can you deliver the good? No, because due to the travel restriction, due to the closure of the border, you cannot deliver the goods across the country's border. Even that you try your best, you do everything, but you cannot overcome those consequences. Okay? And similarly, if you apply the CISG, they use the same meaning, that to have avoided or to overcome it and all its consequences. So to sum up, even the wording between the two laws, it may be slightly different, but the meaning, I think, it stays the same. Even we apply the CISG or we apply the Vietnamese law, we need to satisfy three main conditions to consider an event is a force majeure event. The first condition is that that event happening in an objective manner, or we can say it should be beyond our people control. Okay. Number two, it should be unpredictable at the time when you sign the contract. It cannot be unforeseeable. It can be unforeseeable at the time when you sign the contract. That is the second condition. And the third condition is that when it is happening, you have nothing to do with that situation. You cannot overcome or you cannot avoid the consequences. Okay, so again, one more time, if you want to demonstrate that you are exempted from the force majeure event, you need to demonstrate that, okay, you already satisfy three main conditions set by the law. Now, with that definition in mind, so I want you to work in the team together. I got the case study here, everyone, the case study. It's not necessarily about the COVID-19, but it's quite similar to the COVID-19. It's happening in Shanghai in 2003 about the SARS, okay, also about the SARS pandemic happening in China. So that's the real case. And at the end of the case, I want you to answer the question, could the seller be exempted due to the force majeure caused by the shark or not? Okay, so you work in the team and that you write down your answer on the Padlet for me. Okay, so Chino, do you have the team already?
I don't think so.
Can anyone take Chino for your team?
Sorry, I don't know. There's like an ad and keeps making that.
Just wait for me. I can handle this. Chili Jung, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Which group are you in?
Lệ Dung, Minh Tú, Việt Nguyễn and Minh Trung. 5 người rồi.
So because Yung is absent today, right? So can you take Chino as the member of your team?
But like, how can we communicate with each other? Like, because we also, discuss
But
in
I
our
don't think that's
messenger group.
you can add him in. Maybe that is the problem.
Right. So,
Yep. So just add Chino in as the member for today, okay? And
right.
so, yeah. So just communicate with him so that to make sure everyone can work in the team together. Okay. Okay, so I already saw the answer from the four main group here. Group number 2, Lang, Kang, Ki, Wong, and Tung An. So I have first question for your group. So the remaining group, they go with the Article 79 of the CIFG. But for your group, so you mentioned about the Civil Code 2015. So can you explain me why you apply the Vietnamese law instead of the CIFG?
Because I read this article in Vietnamese, but I don't remember that the both buyer and seller are not Vietnamese, so I get a little bit mistake. But when I read the article 156 in Vietnamese, 156.1 in Vietnamese, it said that nói tiếng Việt được không thầy?
You just try your best. I think you can do it. So just give a try.
Okay. And the fourth.
But
yeah.
So you thought that okay, if you have the second part, so which law would be applicable here? The Vietnamese law or the CIFG, and why?
Sorry, can you say it again?
So which law would be applicable here? The Vietnam's law or the CIFG to deal with this case study?
CISG.
So what do you think so?
Because this happened is not in Vietnam, so it cannot use the Vietnam law.
Yeah, it actually is the contract with the foreign element here. So
Yeah.
this is a contract signed by the Netherlands and the China seller and buyer. And because more importantly, you need to emphasize that because Netherlands and China are the members of the CIFG already. So for that reason, if the two parties are not mentioned in the CIFG in the contract or any law in the contract, so the CIFG would be automatically applicable. So that's why we are dealing with the CIFG, not the Vietnamese law in this situation. So for the first question, I think the group number 1, number 2, and number 1, number 3, and number 4, you already got the correct law. Okay. Group number 4. Can you explain your answer?
The seller cannot be extended from SaaS because based on the Article 79 CISG indicated that the event occur in April. Seller can anticipate the event until the June.
So that's the not exempted. The seller can be not exempted because this is not the force majeure event, right?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's the correct answer, everyone. Right. Because if we apply the Article 79.1 here, so the point here is that the seller can be exempted only if satisfies the three main conditions. The first condition is that it's beyond one's control. The second condition that is unpredictable at the time when you sign the contract. And the number three, when that happening, you cannot avoid or you cannot overcome the consequences of that event. So I think checking the three conditions in the case study, it can be easily reckoned that it cannot satisfy the second condition. Why? Because actually the contract is signed in June 2003, and the shot happening in China actually in June as well. So it means that at that time when you sign the contract, you already predict that event. Okay, because when you already predict it, so it means that it cannot say that, okay, you have no idea about that event and it's unpredictable or it's unforeseeable. So it cannot satisfy that condition, and for that reason, that is not the force majeure event, and the seller cannot be exempted from non-performance. If that happens, so you should have predicted and you should have some solution to deal with that situation. You cannot say, okay, I have no idea and that's it beyond my control and I cannot overcome. No, because that's it already happening. So it cannot satisfy the condition set by the Article 79.1. Now, link it to the current situation. Can we say that the COVID-19 for now is the force majeure event, everyone? Can someone answer?
I think like if we sign the contract now, so I think COVID is not counted to be a force majeure because it's already happened, and the seller, I mean, like when you sign a contract, you need to predict your value or your responsibility.
Yep, I also agree. So first of all, because this is already happening, so that's the event that the party can predict when you sign the contract. So for that reason, you cannot satisfy the condition of being the force majeure event, the CIFG or the Vietnam's law. However, if the party they want to consider the COVID-19 pandemic is the force majeure, what they should do is that they should mention it in the contract, like the condition for exemption, because the contract is the law between the party. If you want to mention it's in the exemption case, so you should mention and clarify it in the contract. So in the contract, you could say, okay, the force majeure event including the COVID-19 pandemic. So when that's happening, okay, you don't need to demonstrate based on the law. You don't need to say, okay, we need to demonstrate three main conditions because it's already stipulated in the contract. And the willing of the party, the consent of the party will prevail the law in this situation. Is that clear to you, everyone?
Yeah, it's quite clear for us.
Now, when the force majeure event happening, the law puts some obligation for the one who experienced the force majeure event. Under the Article 295, the law says the party must promptly notify in writing the other party of cases of liability exemption and possible consequences thereof. And you also need to provide the evidence from the qualified authority. So let's say, okay, if you got trouble like due to the flood or due to the earthquake, so you need to get the evidence, maybe from the evidence from the authority of Vietnam to say, okay, that's it happening in some provinces in Vietnam, okay, to demonstrate that, okay, you are actually experiencing the force majeure event. Now, I want you to make a comparison by reading the Article 79.4. And at the end, I want you to make a comparison about the notification obligation between the two laws. Are there any differences between the two laws regarding the notification obligation or not?
Thầy ơi, là đọc cái 79.4 với cái gì nữa để làm compare thầy, để làm comparison thầy?
Article 295, I already mentioned on the
Được.
slide here. Okay, yeah.
Thầy ơi, cho em hỏi là cái force major thầy, thì hồi nãy có cái article của cái civil code với lại CISG á, thì mặc dù
Yes.
cái câu từ của nó khác nhau, nhưng mà cái ý nghĩa thì nó giống nhau hoàn toàn, đúng không thầy?
Yep, it should be the same.
Okay, so no difference between two
Article
laws.
979, yeah, no
Yeah,
difference.
yeah. Thank you.
But if you apply the wrong law, so you cannot say, okay, because we apply the wrong law, but the outcome should be the same. So you cannot say that, okay? So if the
Yes.
final exam, first of all, you need to do is that you need to apply the correct law first. Even the outcome from you and your friend, if you apply the different law, would be the same outcome. But you have no mark for your question because you apply the incorrect law. So
Yes,
be aware of that.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thầy ơi, cái đoạn 79 sorry, kiểu em không có hiểu cái chỗ 79.4 á thầy, câu cuối cùng là he is liable for damage, là cái bên em đang không biết cái he ở đây là bên nào á thầy.
So the one who experienced the force majeure event. Okay.
Like kiểu như là nếu mà seller, ví dụ em với lại thầy đi, mà em không giao hàng kịp cho thầy là thầy chịu, nếu mà em không thông báo kịp cho thầy là thầy chịu lỗ hay là em chịu lỗ này?
Of course you, because you are not
dạ rồi.
delivering the goods to me.
Yeah, alright, I got it.
So Julie, can you read out loud the article 79.4 for the whole class?
For sure. Like the party who fails to perform must give notice to the other party of the impediment and its effect on his ability to perform. If the notice is not received by the other party within a reasonable time after the party who fails to perform knew or ought to have known of the impediment, he is liable for damage resulting from such non-receipt. Do I need to point out the differences?
Yes, please.
For in the commercial law, I think the first difference is must promptly in writing. However, in CISG, it don't mentions about you notice by writing or the type. And the second difference, I think is for the law on commerce, you need to provide the evidence from qualified authority. However, in CISG, you just notice about the time, the reasonable time to the other party. I think this is two differences I observe.
Okay. So I also agree about the form of the notification. So under the Vietnamese law, the notification must be in writing. So you could send an email or you could send a letter to say that, okay, I'm in trouble with the force majeure event in Vietnam. If you make a phone call, it's illegible under the Vietnam's law because the setup we need to give notice in writing only. Okay? In CISG, that is silent on the form of the notification. So it means that whatever you do, as long as you notify them, that should be okay. So I think the main difference here is about the form of notification. The second one is the time when you do notify. In Vietnamese, they will use the term promptly. So it should be quickly, promptly, And how about in the CISG? Actually, they use another term. They said that it's in a reasonable time. So I think in the CISG is more flexible than the Vietnam's law when it comes to the time when you deliver the notification. Probably may not be good because it's hard to say, because it's, in some reason, in some cases you cannot deliver prompt due to some circumstances. But reasonable is may consider all circumstances surrounding. So I think I like the term reasonable rather than promptly. Okay, I think that's it, the second differences. And also both of the law they mentioned that if you don't notify at a reasonable time, so you should be liable for that activity as well. Even though the CIG they didn't mention clearly about the provide evidence, but in reality, if you want to demonstrate you are in trouble with the force majeure, so clearly you need to show the evidence as well. So actually, that's the same. Okay, so that is some point that you can learn from the CISG and about the Vietnam's law regarding the notification. Now, the most important part here is the effect of exemption on the right and the duty of the party. So when the exemption, when when the force majeure or when the liability exemption is happening, so what is the legal consequences? So I want you to take some time to read the commercial law first. So please refer to the Article 294 to 296 of the commercial law, everyone. Particularly read the Article 296 for me carefully. Okay, so after reading the article 296 of the law, so my question for you everyone, when the force majeure is happening, can party terminate the contract or not?
Thầy đọc lại câu hỏi lần nữa này. Cái terminate đúng không này?
Yes. Can the party to the contract terminate the contract when the force majeure is happening? It's like, for example, if the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, right? Is the force majeure event, and you cannot deliver the good to the customer in Australia, okay? And based on that force majeure, can you say, okay, because the force majeure is happening, the pandemic COVID-19 is happening, I cannot deliver the good to you, so I wish to terminate the contract.
No, I think because like based on the article 296, so in a force majeure situation, so the two parties must agree and discuss and deal with each other about the time limit to perform and conduct the contract. Is right, sir?
Yep. So if you read the article 296, so actually the first thing the law provide the mechanism for the party to extend the time to perform the contract. So okay, that's it happening with the force majeure. So can we extend the contract in the next 2 months or maybe 3 months? So it's totally up to the negotiation of the party. But the legal consequences here is that you have the right to postpone the contract. You are not allowed to terminate the contract immediately. Okay? So first of all, the law provides the party the mechanism to negotiate the contract, to postpone the contract. So how about the time limit here? If the party cannot negotiate, so let's say you want to extend the contract in the next 9 months, but your partner say, okay, 9 months is too long, I didn't agree, so let's withdraw 4 months instead. So what did the law say about this situation, everyone? If the seller and the buyer did not agree about the time limit to extend the obligation, so how should we deal with this situation? Mỹ Tiên. Mỹ Tiên is absent.
Dạ thầy ơi, Mỹ Tiên absent today ạ.
Okay. Quân. What Vinh Quân? Quân is absent either.
Dạ không thầy ơi, Quân có ở đây thầy.
Quân, are you there? Because I cannot hear from him. If you are inactive, it means that you are absent as well. Hoàng Trung.
Dạ Hoàng Trung absent.
Too many people absent today. Minh Trung.
Dạ Minh Trung có thầy.
Yes, I'm here.
You get my question, Trung?
Can you say question one more time?
Okay. So let's say you and me sign the contract, but due to the COVID-19, I cannot deliver the good to you on time. So can I say that, okay, I want to deliver the good, but because due to the COVID-19, can I deliver the good a bit late, let's say in the next 6 months? And you said that, okay, 6 months is too long, and you require additional time for 2 months only. How can we deal with this situation if the party cannot agree about the extended time limit here?
How can we deal with this situation? I still can think about it.
Can you please read the article 296 to the whole class again one more time?
Okay.
Because I think the answer could be found out under the article 296.1.
Okay, I'll read the 296.1. A single item of property may be used as security for performance of several obligations if
296 of the commercial law, not the civil law.
Commercial law, okay. Commercial law. Commercial law. Law on commercial.
Yes.
Okay. Extend in a force measure. In a force measure. In a force measure circumstances, the party may agree to extend the time limit for performing their respective contractual obligation. If the party does not agree or cannot agree upon such extension, the time limit for performing contractual obligation shall be extended for a period of time equal to the time length of such form measure circumstances, plus a reasonable period of time for remedying consequence, but not exceeding 5 months for goods or service for which the free limit for the delivery or provision does not exist. 12 months from the date of the contract is entered to. 8 months for goods or service for which the free time limit for their delivery or provision exceeds 12 months from the date the contract is entered to. So I think that we will use the period time equal to the time length of the force majeure is the COVID-19 and a reasonable time.
So yes, so you can see that clearly. If we cannot agree on the additional time limit, so the law set up a general formula here that's equal to the time when you got the force majeure, plus with a reasonable period of time to overcoming the consequences. But then the law also provide the limit here as well. The maximum 5 minutes and the maximum 8 minutes in the two situations. So you know the principle. The principle is that when the COVID-19 or whatsoever the force majeure is happening, the party cannot terminate the contract immediately, but you have the right to extend the time limit, okay, to perform the contract. And how about the time limit here? If you cannot agree, so that's the regulation of the law that is equal to the time when you are in trouble with the force majeure, flood the remedy at the time, a reasonable time to overcome the consequences. Okay, so that's the main point. However, if you read the 296 here, they said that beyond the time limit mentioned in the Article 1, the party may refuse to perform the contract, and neither party is entitled to request the other party to pay damages. So what does that mean? It means that, okay, can you terminate the contract? The answer is yes. But the condition is that when it is beyond the time limit set by the law, so at that time you can terminate the contract. So let's say, okay, if the party already set the time to perform the contract is 5 months after the force majeure, okay, but then after 5 months you still cannot perform the contract. So at that time, one of the party can terminate the contract. So the key point that you can take away here is that you cannot terminate the contract when the force majeure is happening. But you still can terminate the contract if it's beyond the time limit set by the two parties and by the law. Does that make sense to you, Joe? Hoàng Trung. Ngọc Thị, is that clear to you? Thiện is absent, right? Nhã Trúc.
Alo, right? Hello.
Okay, so you get my point.
Yeah.
So can we terminate the contract? Are you able to speak? This session, every session, it can be part of your final exam, everyone. So to be careful, because if you get distracted, so it would be a triple in the final exam. So I just want to make sure that everyone will stay in the class. So you need to focus on every lecture. So because we are doing online, so I'm not quite sure whether you are really studying or not. So it's just your own responsibility, and it could be your job to overcome the final exam. Okay. I have to say so because in the last semester, first semester, final exam, many of you is not really get a good mark. So just try to put more additional point for the one who raised hand in the class to improve some performance of you. So try to raise hand, answer the question to get more point for your final exam.
Thầy ơi, con hỏi tí thầy.
Yes.
Kiểu như trong trường hợp á mà cái
actually, because you speak in Vietnamese all the time, and the point here is that we still got a channel in the class. So, if possible, so I prefer you speak in English.
Yes.
I don't think that's a problem for you, right?
Yes, okay. Can I ask something? If when we terminate the contract, but like they have the due for 5 months and 5 months and 8 months, but later they can extend the contract. Can they extend the contract?
At the end of the day, it is totally up to agreement of the party. So the agreement of the party should go ahead first, should prevail any other regulation if the law provides so. So if you want to continue to the contract, if the party continue to do the contract, yes, you can do so. But if one party they don't want to continue the contract because it's too long for them and they cannot receive the good from you after the additional time, so they can base on the law to terminate the contract.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Now, I want you to have a look about the standard clause made by the ICC, everyone. So what does the ICC stand for? ICC is the International Chambers of Commerce. So this is the non-government organization, and the main function of this organization is to facilitate the international business all around the world. So they keep update or they keep publish some kind of the legal document to guide the enterprise on the worldwide so that we can do business smoothly. So this is one of the standard force majeure clause 2020. So maybe it might be hard for the SME to wrap or to incorporate the force majeure event in your contract. So you can copy or you can incorporate this kind of term in your contract. Okay, so this is an example. So in the next 5 more minutes, so I want you to read it carefully and tell me what is your understanding about each paragraph in the contract. Okay, so take some time to read the article first, and not the article but the standard clause.
Thầy ơi thầy, bây giờ nhà em đang có việc gấp á, thầy cho em out 15 phút nha thầy.
Okay.
Dạ em cảm ơn.
Okay, now it's time to check the ICC Force Majeure Clause 2020. So we can see that it's got three main paragraphs. The first one, what is your understanding about the first paragraph here? How is it a different compared to the CISG or the Vietnam's law? Quê Hương.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So what do you think about the first paragraph? What is your understanding?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Can you read out loud the first paragraph, please?
Force majeure means the occur of an event or circumstance that prevent or impede a party from performing one or more of its contractual obligation under the contract if and to the intent that the party role that just impediment is beyond its reasonable control and that it could not reasonably have been foreseen at the time of the conclusion of the contract and that the effects of the impediment could not reasonably have been avoided or overcome by a affected party.
So after reading this, can you tell me what are how many conditions to be satisfied when you demonstrate the force majeure event?
I think maybe two conclusion.
No. The question here is that how many conditions, how many criteria to be applied to consider an event would be a force majeure event. You get my question?
Yes.
So how many conditions here? One, two, three, four.
And one condition.
What is the condition?
I think two condition.
What are the two conditions?
That shows impediment is beyond its reasonable control.
That is the first condition, okay? What is the second one?
That it could not reasonably have been foreseen at the time of the conclusion of the contract.
That's the second condition.
Yeah, and the last is that the effects of the impediment could not reasonably has been avoided or overcome by the effect party.
So I'm guessing that's it, the three condition, not two, right?
Yeah.
How is it different compared to the CIH? So we all learn about the Vietnamese law and the CIH regarding the definition of the force majeure, right? So going back to Article 79.1, do you see any differences here? Can you read out loud the Article 79.1 CIG again one more time?
What way a minute? Um, a party is not liable for a failure to perform any office or obligation if he protests the failure due to an impediment beyond his control and thus he could not reasonably be expected to have taken the impediment into account at the time of the conclusion of the contract or to have avoided or overcome its consequence.
So according to the CIH, if you want to demonstrate one impediment would be the force majeure. So how many conditions that you need to satisfy? Is that new to you? I don't think it's a new thing because I just explained carefully in the previous slide already. So actually, if you notice, so it's just totally the same. So even the CISG or even the ICC force majeure clause here. So clearly, it's the three main conditions to satisfy. Okay, so the first condition is that it's beyond one's control. The second one is it is unforeseeable, and the third condition is that it cannot be avoided or overcome. Is that clear to you, Wehu?
Yes, I'm clear.
Okay. Now, the second paragraph. So, Mai, what is your understanding about the second paragraph? Ngọc Mai, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
What is your understanding about the second paragraph, Ngọc Mai?
The second one, is it the rule, the following rule of the some condition and the
Mark, are you able to talk?
Yes, but because the sound surrounding me is, so I think I can talk right now.
Yes. Actually, I think I can hear you well.
Yes, because the sound is surrounding me.
That's okay. I still can hear you well, Mark. Mark, can you continue?
Yes, I read it. I'm still reading.
Mike, what is the first meaning? What is the meaning of the first sentence?
The first sentence of the paragraph 2, right?
Yes.
Is about the absence of the group to the contrary. The follow the follow what is it? The following event affecting a party shall be reason to fulfill the condition and A and B under paragraph 1 of this clause.
So on the one hand, I think the legal term is maybe a bit complicated for you to understand, but I would like to hear more from your explanation about the very first sentence here. What does that mean here, Mike? Did you get the point from the second paragraph here?
Yes. Is it about the some condition about the war? Mm,
Okay, thank you, Mike, for your try. I would like to hear more from other. Can someone volunteer to tell me what can you take away from the second paragraph, everyone? Okay, Lan.
Well, from the second paragraph, as I can understand, it's talking about the evidence for the paragraph 1, like about war, like the talking about the force majeure, yeah, like about the
It's unclear to me, like.
it's an example. I think so.
So that can be okay. So your point is that they just provide some example to illustrate what event is the force majeure event.
Oh yes.
So it's like war, civil war, or a terrorism, or a fire explosion. But it's not just stop there. There's still some point that I want you to remember, especially the very first sentence. In the absence of proof to the contrary, the following event affecting a party shall be presumed to fulfill condition A and B. So what we can really take away here is that, okay, number one, they also, if you want to demonstrate the force majeure that you are experiencing, you need to demonstrate three main conditions. But if you are in the example of the second paragraph, so you don't need to demonstrate the condition 1 and the condition 2. All you need to do is just demonstrate the third condition only. So it's like, okay, you are having the pandemic, you are experiencing the pandemic. So in theory, you need to demonstrate, okay, number one, is it beyond one's control? Number two, is it happening, is it unpredictable? And number three, is it cannot be overcome or avoided. So it may be a bit challenging for the one to demonstrate three main factors. And I think the second paragraph here, they provide the flexible mechanism to demonstrate. So when those listed under the paragraph 2 happening, you don't need to demonstrate for the first and the second condition. You need to demonstrate for the last one only. You get my point, everyone? For example, I can give you an example. So you know the one of the natural disaster in the middle of Vietnam, which is a storm and flood, is happening all the time. So especially in the rainy season, so we got so many storms and the flood happening in the middle of Vietnam, and that could be the force majeure. But if you want to prove that this is the force majeure under the any of law, so basically you need to satisfy three main conditions. It's a one control. It's a beyond one's control. It's a unforeseeable, and number three, it cannot be avoided or overcome. And I think that's it. The problem to demonstrate that's it unpredictable, because one may argue that okay, the flood happening in Vietnam all the time. It's all the time. So you know, so that's the unpredictable or predictable. So many people argue that okay, because the flood happening in the middle of Vietnam all the time, and so it's predictable. When you sign the contract with the middle of with the partner located in the middle of Vietnam, so the parties should know that okay, there would be a flood when we sign the contract. So that would be the challenging to demonstrate the flood would be the force majeure event or not. So if you mention like the second paragraph in the ICC law, so you don't have to demonstrate whether it's predictable or not. Even the pandemic, like I mentioned earlier, if we are signing the contract for now, so for sure the pandemic is not the force majeure. But you mentioned the second paragraph in the contract like here, so you don't need to demonstrate the condition A or condition B. All you need to do is that you demonstrate the third condition, that you cannot overcome or you cannot avoid the consequences of that event. You get my main point, everyone?
So
Yes.
when this happens, so we need to demonstrate the like the second paragraph, and then and also the C, that's the first paragraph about C. It has to
Okay, just one more time in English, and then I will elaborate in Vietnamese a bit later on to make sure that everyone can fully understand. Okay,
Yes.
the second paragraph, so they mention some kind of typical force majeure. So like mention war, they mention explosion, fire, or they may mention epidemic, natural disaster as well. So those, when it's happening, can we consider as a force majeure or not? The answer is that okay, we just need to demonstrate the C condition, which is that it can be avoided or it can be overcome. We don't need to demonstrate that it is beyond one's control and it may be unforeseeable. So it means that they provide the less evidence to demonstrate the situation happening in the second paragraph. That's the main point of the second paragraph. You get that point I mentioned in Chino? Chino, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, yeah. So you get the main point of the second paragraph?
Second paragraph. Yeah, I understood that like it caused explosion between each other.
Okay. Yep. So I may explain a little bit in Vietnamese, so that everyone can understand. Now, cái đoạn số 2 này các bạn ơi, có nghĩa là gì? Có nghĩa là như thầy lấy ví dụ nãy trường hợp á, ví dụ như thầy hỏi này, nếu như mình không quy định cái đoạn số 2 trong hợp đồng á, mà giả sử nó xảy ra bão lũ ở miền Trung á, thì cái chuyện bão lũ á, nó có được xem như là một cái sự kiện bất khả kháng hay không? Thì cũng rất là khó để nói là bão lụt miền Trung nó là một sự kiện bất khả kháng. Bởi vì sao? Bởi vì nó có một cái yếu tố rằng là cái bão lũ này là mình có lường trước được hay không. Thì một bên nó bảo là bão thì năm nào cũng xảy ra, thì khi mà mình ký hợp đồng thì mình phải lường trước được chứ. Mà nếu như cái lập luận của họ như vậy á, thì mình sẽ rất là khó để mình xem nó là một sự kiện bất khả kháng. vì nó sẽ không thỏa mãn cái tiêu chí là unpredictable at the time when you sign the contract. Có nghĩa rằng là nếu mà mình lường trước được thì nó đâu còn là sự kiện bất khả kháng. Như vậy nó có khó không? Nó khó để chứng minh, đúng không các bạn? Cho nên trong cái đoạn số 2 này nè, người ta nói nè, người ta liệt kê một số những cái trường hợp về thiên tai, rồi về chiến tranh, rồi về những cái sự kiện như là cháy nổ. Thì trong cái trường hợp số 2 này á, thì khi những cái sự kiện được liệt kê này nó xảy ra thì mình không cần phải chứng minh đầy đủ 3 cái yếu tố như trong cái điều kiện của bất khả kháng, mà được mặc nhiên là điều số 1 và điều số 2 đã được chứng minh rồi. Như vậy cái nghĩa vụ của bên mà gặp bất khả kháng nếu như nó rơi vào trường hợp số 2 thì mình chỉ cần chứng minh một cái điều kiện thứ 3 duy nhất mà thôi. Đó là mình chứng minh rằng là mình không thể nào khắc phục được và mình cũng không thể nào vượt qua được cái hậu quả của cái sự kiện này. Được không? Tức là nó make it easier for the party who is experiencing the force majeure to demonstrate that event is the force majeure or not. Does that make sense, everyone?
Là lúc mà mình nói cái vấn đề mà ví dụ như là thiên tai thì nó ví dụ như là ở cái mục là natural disaster, và also mình cũng phải nói về cái phần mục 1C luôn, đúng không?
Tức là trong cái đoạn số 2 này phải không? Tức là người ta liệt kê cho em là từ số 1 cho đến tới số 7. Vậy thì trong 7 cái ví dụ này thì mình sẽ chỉ cần chứng minh cái điều kiện số 3 thôi.
Là mình nói cái số 2 và cùng lúc mình chứng minh luôn cái điều kiện số 3, là phải cùng lúc đó là cả hai.
Tại sao lại nói cái số 2 là sao? Cái số 2 là thầy đang nói là đoạn số 2 của cái điều khoản này nè. Thầy đang nói với các bạn là thầy đang nói là điều khoản số 2 của cái điều này. Cái đây có nói là các bạn phải chứng minh điều kiện số 2.
Dạ không. Ý là nếu mà những cái trường hợp mà trong cái điều kiện cái đoạn số 2 là mình chỉ cần chứng minh mỗi cái số 3 thôi, cái đoạn C, cái ý C thôi.
Đúng rồi. Yes. Lan, yes, you got question?
Well, like when we make giống như là when we make a contract, like when we don't want to make, get a damage, như không có muốn bị cái thiệt hại về mấy cái điều đó, thì mình phải đi trong cái hợp đồng á, là kiểu như là nếu như mà có những cái trường hợp bất khả kháng, những trường hợp mà không lường trước được á, thì theo cái luật ICC á, thì mình sẽ không bị bắt bẻ, không thầy, kiểu như là để mình bắt bẻ.
Yeah. So just try to make it clear in the contract. So if you have no experience of drafting a force majeure clause, so you can just mention this ICC clause in the contract, so it's easier to do so. Or you can also, if you know your situation, you can also wrap your own force majeure clause in the contract. Okay, so if you just based on the law, maybe it's not tailored for your circumstances. So you need to get to know what is your circumstances, and you should to make it very clear in the contract. Otherwise, it's really hard to demonstrate one event would be the force majeure event. So one of the advice here is that you can also use the ICC force majeure clause for your own contract. Okay? Is that clear to you?
Yes, I got it.
Okay. So in the contract, you might mention something like that. Okay, this is the one I'm highlighting. The force majeure clause of the International Chamber of Commerce is hereby incorporated in the contract. So when you say so, it means that you refer directly to mention that clause in your contract. So you don't need to wrap the contract anymore. You just copy it like this, and that clause or something like that, it will be part of your contract already. Okay? Yeah. Now, in the next session, I will try to explain the hardship, everyone. Have you heard about the hardship, everyone?
No.
Yep. So the hardship in Vietnamese, we got that's quite new actually in the Vietnamese law. The hardship in Vietnamese, we could say hoàn cảnh thay đổi cơ bản. Okay? And that's quite new in Vietnamese law, and it's not mentioned under the CISG. So if you read the article 420, please take some time to read the article 420 that I post on the slide already. So we can see that the hardship happening when we demonstrate that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, when we certify 5 main conditions here. So I want you to make a comparison with the force majeure in Vietnamese law. What are the differences between the hardship and the force majeure? Okay.
I thought that we will talk about the paragraph 3 at the previous slide, because because in this ICC, the third paragraph is the only paragraph that I understand. So, yeah.
So okay, I forgot to mention the third paragraph.
Yeah, because it's like I know this is my personal, so I think that I read and I understand this paragraph and know exactly what they say.
Okay. But from what I explained, can you get the main idea from the first and the second one?
The first, second, just like a little bit, but I think it's okay.
And the first one, okay, I think the first one, I just provide the effect when you are experiencing the force majeure. So let's say sentence, a party successfully invoking this clause is relieved from its duty to perform its obligation under the contract and from any liability in damages or from any contractual remedy for breach of the contract. So the first sentence here, they tried, I think it's quite similar to Vietnam's law and the CIFG. It means that when you are experiencing the force majeure, so you are free from the liability. You are free from paying any damages to others. So that's the main point. So I think this is the same in all cases, in all law, when you are experiencing the force majeure. So you have no responsibility to pay any damages. However, they said that provided the notice thereof is given with a delay. It means that if you want to be free from the force majeure event, you need to inform the other party as well. And I think the Vietnamese law and the CIFG also provide the notification obligation as well. And when the force majeure event happening, you have to do is that you need to inform others. Okay? And under the standard clause here, you should also notice without delay. Okay? So that is the condition. And they also mention something like, unless otherwise agreed, the party expressly agree that the contract may be terminated by either party if the duration of the impediment exceeds 120 days. So you can see that this is different from the Vietnam's law. Why? Because if you read the article 296 of the law, so the maximum for the time limit could be 50 days or 80 days. But here they said that if the party is beyond the time limit, which is 120 days, so the other party can terminate the contract. So to sum up the act and the third paragraph here, they provide some solution or some effect when party experiencing the force majeure. So when the force majeure happening, number one, you should be free from the liability. Number two, to get so, you need to notify order without delay. And number three, they mentioned about the termination of the contract. You can extend the time limit, but in all cases, it cannot be beyond 120 days. I suppose that it is equivalent to 4 months. And this is longer than the civil than the commercial law of Vietnam when they provide only 50 days or 80 days. So that's it. I think that's it. the most important point regarding this third paragraph. Is that clear? Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, for me it's clear.
Okay. Okay, let's continue with the hardship, everyone. So, hardship, as I mentioned earlier, this is quite new even in the Vietnamese law, and it is not governed by the CISG. So, all I want you to do is make a comparison between the condition for having the hardship and the condition having the force majeure. So, let's say in the Vietnamese law, we already learned about the Article 156.1. Okay, so make a comparison between the Article 156.1 and also the Article 420 and compare the condition for being the force majeure and being the hardship. Are there any differences between the two scenarios here? When someone can consider experiencing the hardship and when someone of the civil code. I will give you another 5 more minutes, everyone.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so let's examine together. So if you read the article 420.1 here, so they may mention the point A to the point D. So let's go through each condition. The number A, the point A, the circumstances change due to objective reasons occurred after the conclusion of the contract. Is it the same or different when we compare to the force majeure event, everyone? Lan?
Well, I think it's different.
And how is it different?
Like in the civil code, Article 4.420.1.8, this they have already in the contract and have any mention about the ICC force majeure, and they have in the contract mentioned that they have all the agree have forecast all the the circumstances, and they mention the orders. So I think it's different from the ICC.
So just bear with me. I don't want you to compare with the ICC, but I just want you to compare between the Vietnamese law regarding the hardship and the force majeure. So you may misunderstand my point of view. So just bear with me. So just try to copy in the hardship and the force majeure event here. So this is the hardship, and this is the force majeure event. Like, can you read it again? How about the option? How about the first condition in the hardship? Is that does that coincide with the civil code here?
Can you wait a minute and read it again?
Okay, sure.
Even a statement is in an objective manner is not able to be foreseen and which is not able to be remedied by possible sense.
So you may see that in the civil code regarding the force majeure, they mention that it occur in an objective manner, and here in the hardship they mention that the circumstances change due to the objective reason occur after the conclusion of the contract. I think it should be the same because all those events here happening beyond our control, and it's happening in an objective manner. Okay, so it's not from our will, but it's happening due to external environment. Okay, for example, the pandemic, or might be the flood or natural disaster. It's happening. It's not depend on our will. It's happening due to some act of God or maybe some other factor. So I think the first condition to demonstrate the force majeure or the hardship should be the same. Okay. The second condition on your right hand side, at the time of concluding the contract, the party could not foresee a change in circumstances. So the second condition is the same or different, everyone? Let me hear from Kim Chi. Kim Chi, you hear me? So Kim Chi is absent from the class today. Lệ Dung.
Ông Lệ Dung bị absent.
Dạ thầy ơi, em có xin nhìn chị Lệ Dung là chị bị dương tính đó thầy.
Okay. Yeah, huh?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. How about the second condition in the hardship?
I think for the second point, compared to the civil code, I think that the meaning is the same. Yes, because at the time of signing the contract, the two parties could not foresee or predict.
Yep, totally correct. So for the force majeure on the event, you need to demonstrate that when you sign the contract is unforeseeable. It cannot be predicted. Okay, so even that is the hardship or the force majeure, you need to demonstrate so. Now, the third condition, the circumstances change such fundamentally that if the party know in advance the contract has not been concluded or are concluded but with completely different content. So if you know that it is happening, so the contract may not be concluded or concluded but with completely different content, same or different.
Thầy ơi, hồi nãy bạn giải thích có xin thầy là inactive today đó thầy.
Okay, yeah, thank you for a reminder. Minh Tú.
Dạ chị Tú mới xin nghỉ đi tiêm vaccine.
Okay. Ngọc Vy.
Ngọc Vi absent today. So.
Okay, thank you. Too many absent today, everyone. Hoàng Việt.
Yeah.
Okay, so Việt, what about the third condition here, Việt? Same or different with the force majeure?
Still thinking about it.
Okay, actually, in the force majeure, they did not mention, right? But I suppose that it should be the same because clearly when you sign the contract, if you already foresee the force majeure, you may not sign the contract. Or even if that happening, so you may say the contract with a different content. So even though on your the article 156.1 that is silent on the issue, but I think it shares the same outcome. Even the hardship or even the force majeure is happening, you may not sign the contract. Okay, or maybe you sign in the contract with the different content. So for that reason, I think the point C here is quite similar. And I think, the main point here is the point D. And I think that makes the hardship different from the force majeure. The continuation of the contract without the change in the contract would cause serious damage to one party. So why I'm saying that is the main difference? Because when the event is the force majeure event, the first condition is that you're not able to be remedied. Is not able to be remedied by all possible necessary and admissible measures be taken. So what we can take away is that when the force majeure event happening, you cannot overcome it. There is nothing that you can do to deal with the force majeure event. Even that you try your best, but there is nothing you can do with the force majeure. So that is the main idea of the force majeure event. But when the hardship happening, you still can perform the contract. You still can perform the contract because the law says that the continuation of the contract. So it means that you still can perform the contract. But if you still perform the contract, it may cause the serious damage to you. So you see, the main difference here is the consequences. In the force majeure, you cannot perform the contract. But in the hardship, you still can perform the contract. But maybe it would be a bit burden to you. I can give you an example. When you sign the contract, maybe the price of the product is low. But then at the time when you perform the contract, the price is 10 times higher. Can you still perform the contract? Yes. But then it may cause a burden to you. So this is the hardship, not the force majeure. Because when the force majeure is happening, you cannot perform the contract, even that you try your best. But when the hardship happening, so you may perform the contract. You can continue to do the contract, but it may cause you a serious damage. So that is the main differences between the hardship and the force majeure event. Okay. So due to another example, due to the COVID-19, so the transportation fee from Vietnam to the USA is incredibly increasing. Okay, so it means that you can perform the contract or not. Yes, you still can perform the contract, but then you have to pay more for transportation costs, and it may be a big damage to you. So whether the pandemic here could be the force majeure, no, it's not the force majeure, because you still can perform the contract. Okay. The third condition of being the force majeure is that you cannot overcome it, you cannot avoid it. But here, you still can overcome it. You just have to pay for more fee. It means that you can perform the contract. But then it may cause the damage to you because you have to pay more. So this situation, we can say that is the hardship situation, not the force majeure event. Is that clear, everyone?
Yeah, clear.
Okay. The point of body, I don't think that's the difference. It should be the same. So compare between the zero code and the hardship. I think the point D under the article 420, that is the critical point, making it different from the civil code. Okay, now you all know about the legal consequences when the force majeure happening. This is the effect of the hardship, everyone. And I think this is make it different from the force majeure on also. So first of all, if you read the point 2, it said that in the case of the basic circumstances change, the vantage party may request the other party to renegotiate the contract in a reasonable period of time. So when the hardship happening based on Article 420.2, what the parties should do is that they can negotiate the contract again to change the terms and conditions of the contract, so to make the contract more fair to both parties. For example, the transportation cost is incredibly increasing. So can we reduce the transportation cost, or can we allocate the transportation cost for both parties? So that is the obligation of the party to renegotiate the term and the condition of the contract to make it fair for both parties. So that is the legal consequences when it comes to the hardship. And the point 3, they said that if the party cannot reach an agreement on amending the contract within a reasonable period of time, so any of the party may request a court A, terminate the contract, B, adapt the contract with a view to restoring it, ask the court to terminate the contract, or maybe they can ask the court to revise the contract in the way that it can ensure the equality or the fairness between the seller and the buyer in the contract. So you get the main point here, everyone. One more time. When the hardship happening, what is the legal consequences? Number 1, when this happens, the party need to sit down, talk together, negotiate so that they can make a new deal. Okay, that's the first step. If they cannot negotiate successfully, the second step is bring the issue to the court. Ask the court to terminate the contract. Or they can ask the court to revise the contract in the way that it can create or make sure that the seller and the buyer here is in equal position. Okay, so to make sure that to create the fairness between the seller and the buyer. For example, the transport cost is too high. Can we allocate the cost fairly between seller and buyer? Yep, that's the main idea of this article, everyone. Does that make sense to you, Tuấn Anh? Tuấn Anh, are you there? Tuấn Anh is absent. Mặt Ngọc.
Dạ clear thầy ơi.
Okay. So now, can I ask you another question?
Oh yes, of course, sir.
Okay. Can you decide the following statement is true or false? Okay.
Yeah.
When the hardship happens, the party have the right to terminate the contract. True or false?
I think it's false because based on the implicit, based on the article. Article 420 Civil Code, when the hardship happen, so have the party have the right to continue and perform the contract. So it's false when we terminate the contract.
It's still unclear. So you mentioned the Article 420.2. That's the correct legal basis. But you need to say that, okay, the party cannot terminate the contract. First,
the party cannot terminate.
Yes,
and
because they have to negotiate with each other first.
Negotiate
Only
and
the negotiation is unsuccessful, so they may have the right to terminate the contract. But the termination of the contract is not the first result. Okay?
Dạ hiểu ạ.
Okay. So to make sure that everyone can fully understand, so let's do together the two statements here, everyone. Okay. Number 1 and number 2. Now, I would give you another 5 more minutes to answer this question. After that, I will call out some name randomly to answer it. Okay?
Thầy ơi, cái statement đầu á hay là according to CISG là article mấy cái thầy?
So you need to find out the right article, right?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay, the first statement, according to the CISG, a party to the contract is entitled to terminate the contract due to the force majeure. Can someone volunteer to answer this question?
Can I answer?
Sure.
I think it choose because we based on the article 79.1 of CISG. They said that the party are liable for the failure of the perform of any of his obligation if he proves yes.
But they just mentioned, I think the article 79.1, they just mentioned that you should be not liable for the failure to perform. It means that you are exempted from non-performance. Okay, if we just based on 79, you should be not liable for the non-performance, but you are not allowed to terminate the contract. So the first statement is false. The second statement, according
Thì
to
nó lại cái first thầy ơi, cái first statement là mình dựa trên cái article nào vậy thầy?
79, 79 of the CIH.
79.
Because,
Yeah.
yes, because Article 79, they did not mention the termination of the contract. They just say that the party should not be liable for the failure to perform the contract. So the CIHG is silent on the termination of the contract under the Article 79. So this statement would be a false statement. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. The second one. According to Vietnam's law, a party to the contract is entitled to renegotiate the contract due to the hardship.
Can I answer this question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this statement is true because according to the article 420 420.2 they say that the circumstance change sustainabilities, the party who benefit and affects it means the parties has a right to request the other party to renegotiate the contract within a reasonable period of time, which is a very hard time.
Yep. So this statement would be a true statement. Yep.
Yes,
when the hardship happening based on Article 420.2, so
yeah.
you need to renegotiate the contract. So that's it, the correct answer. Thank you. Yep. So because we didn't have the break, so we may finish a bit earlier today. So I think that's the end of the class today, everyone. So just a kindly reminder that next week would